Let's beat the waiver wire. Next on Fantasy Football Today in 5. Welcome to FFT in 5. I'm Chris Towers. I'm here with Dan Schneier. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for following. And we are going to talk about some beat the waiver wire targets for Week 12 ahead of Sunday's games. Obviously, by the time you're listening to this, we've had 4 of the 16 games for this week play. But there are still some guys out there that I think are worth talking about as potential beat the waiver wire targets. Now, one of them was Jeff Wilson, who's 25% rostered. By the time you're listening to this, that's not going to work out. But Dan, you got any other ones?
Yeah, I'm looking at Rashid Shaheed, who has been making big plays on the vertical plane for them all season long, and somebody who I'm looking to roster just for the stretch run as a potential high upside type stash. Another player in that same mold would be maybe Demario Douglas. Now, I am a little concerned with some of the players who are returning at wide receiver for New England this week, and we're going to see how everything shakes out with a new quarterback, or if Mac Jones repeats his job or stays as starter there. We'll see what happens there. But those are just 2 receivers that I have an eye on. How about you?
Yeah, I like the Rashid Shaheed pick. Michael Thomas placed on IR with that knee injury. Shaheed has been making plays for the Saints really over the last year. It was around this time of last season when he really started going. What I like is, he's been playing a decent role, but if he's the true number 2 in this offense, we know Chris Olave is going to get his, but the downfield connection between him and Derek Carr has not been there. Chris Olave actually has the lowest catch rate on targets that are 20-plus yards downfield since he entered the NFL. So it hasn't really been working out for them. I still love the potential, but Shaheed, it's been really working for him. He gets another target or 2 per game. That could take him from, boomer bust wide receiver 3/4 to solidly in that upside wide receiver 2 to 3 range. I'm also just going to say a couple of running backs to keep an eye on. One is Jaleel McLaughlin, who, Samaje Perine missed practice earlier this week, but it does sound like he's going to play. But it's just a reminder that McLaughlin's one of those guys, not quite to the same level of Devon Achane, but, kind of like Keaton Mitchell, where he's shown the ability when he's been given the opportunity to make big plays in the offense, to be a productive, efficient running back for the Broncos. Now, with Javonte Williams fully ramped up, there hasn't been much for Jaleel McLaughlin to do. He's been getting a couple of touches per game. But if anything happens to Williams, if anything happens to Samaje Perine, we could be looking at a situation where Jaleel McLaughlin could be a viable starting fantasy running back moving forward. Let's move on to some things that we're going to be keeping an eye on for Week 12 and just some key storylines. And a big one is, we've got another bunch of quarterback injuries, quarterback changes this week, and the biggest one, obviously, Joe Burrow's injury. First time the Bengals are playing without him this season for a full game. I just want to see what this offense looks like with Jake Browning. Can he at least be good enough to keep things moving, or is this a Zach Wilson situation where you're hoping Jamar Chase is enough of a superstar that it doesn't really matter the quality of the quarterback? You're still starting him, although obviously it is a downgrade. What do you expect to see from this Bengals offense?
I think having some familiarity with the offense is going to be a good thing. I would expect to see a low ADOT style offense, not a lot of targets downfield, but probably more so in the range of 185 to 200 yards passing per game. So not as bad as it could be, like 135 to 150, because he has some familiarity with that system. But as far as Chase goes, he's someone I have to start, but he's someone I'm not excited about starting.
Yeah, I put him right in that Garrett Wilson range, and if T. Higgins comes back, moving forward, it doesn't sound like he's going to play this week. He's like a boomer bust wide receiver 3. He's too talented to just write off completely, but he's going to be the clear number 2 in that offense, and there's going to be some inconsistency there for sure. The other one I want to talk about, what does Trevor Lawrence do? We finally got a breakout. You and I talked about him last week, looking for reasons to be optimistic. Well, he gave us some last week. He looked healthy, rushed for 2 touchdowns, passed for 2 more. The Jaguars are doing some really interesting stuff as far as moving Calvin Ridley around in the formation after, I think he was playing like 95% of his snaps just outside before last week. So does that continue, and can Trevor Lawrence keep it up and, go on a run like we saw in the second half of last season?
I think it's definitely possible. I look at this offense and I see that Lawrence is healthier. Maybe more importantly, Zay Jones is back. And you may not think that Zay Jones is someone who really makes the offense tick, but in a lot of ways he does, because he allows, what you said, Calvin Ridley to play a different role in the offense, and a role that clearly is more effective for him and for the entire offense. So I think it's definitely possible, but I want to see a little bit larger of a sample size before I buy in.
And then one more, you and I early on in the season, we were really optimistic and excited about how Matthew Stafford and the Rams offense were playing. That offensive line was looking better. Kyron Williams looked great early on. Things have kind of fallen apart lately. Now, the part of that is Matthew Stafford missed a game and a half. He's missed some time. Cooper Kupp missed half of last week's game. Sounds like they're going to be pretty much at full strength this week, though. Cooper Kupp got back to practice. Puka Nakua's playing through that shoulder injury. Kyron Williams coming off IR. I want to see what this Rams offense does and can they get going down the stretch, because there's still a lot of upside between Williams, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nakua down the stretch. What do you think we're going to see from them?
Yeah, I think we could see that offense start to get back, the rhythm, the rapport, the timing of the offense. But I really want to just focus in and see if this offensive line can hold up rest of season, because it wasn't an issue, like you said earlier in the season. It is an issue now, and it can derail offenses, as we've seen throughout the entire NFL season. So I'll be focusing in on the offensive line when I'm watching the Rams.
All right, that's going to do it for FFT and 5. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.